Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today I'm going to talk about Symmetra GOATS. This is a real comp. I know that seems a little silly, but it's definitely not trolling. It's used specifically to attack into other GOATS comps. While it's popular to drop Diva for your GOATS comp adjustments, especially now that the defense matrix change has gone through, and that certainly is reasonably done by some teams, for Sym GOATS, I actually prefer to swap out Briggs for Sym, and then sub either Moira or Anna in for Zen to help shore up the sustain lost by not having Inspire. Having Diva helps keep your heavier frontline pressure on the opponent's tanks, which is a big win condition you're playing for with this comp, and helps keep the bulk necessary on your front line to enforce opponents not just running over said front line to kill your damage cannon Symmetra. So what you're looking to do with this comp is force a shield break battle or sustain battle that you really can't lose, given that you have Sym, who will happily charge up her left click on Rhine Shield, ignore defense matrix, and melt the opposing tanks. The shield battle, of course, isn't even close, even though you've dropped Zen, who does do damage to a shield, for Moira or Anna, who generally don't. The problem is, if you're on attack, how do you force the opponents to take said shield battle with you rather than just all in? Well, that's where Symmetra's other abilities, Sentry Turret and Teleporter, come in. Putting down a turret or two in a place that it can't be immediately destroyed means that it gets to apply its slow if Sym's team is getting pushed into. That really takes some steam out of any sort of all-in that the opposing GOATS team can do, and gives Sym that second or so to start to charge up her left click a bit and begin the tank melting. Basically, GOATS doesn't want to commit onto a Sym GOATS team that has had time to set up a couple turrets. Now we bring in Teleporter, which works well against GOATS' low mobility, and Sym GOATS can take a spot with it that it wants behind the opposing GOATS team. And it's generally going to then still have a second after taking that spot through the teleporter to put up a couple turrets. If that spot behind the opponent's GOATS was on point, it's pretty much checkmate, as long as your turrets that you now put up take any real effort to kill. The opponents, again, can't make that strong all-in with a couple turrets up, and clearing them requires pushing in a little, taking a second to clear them with your Diva, with your Zarya, whatever, and that's plenty of time for Sym to start charging up her left click and reaching her tank melting state. After you win the first point, you can try to snowball with Sym ult, but after that, it's generally time to go ahead and swap off of her. So the way teamfights with this comp generally play out is Sym GOATS pushes up to a choke of sorts that the opponent's GOATS is holding the other side of. Sym GOATS drops a turret in a hard-to-kill spot to help enforce their control. That spot can totally be on their side of the choke, that's fine, and is happy to send their tanks through the choke to trade a little bit, knowing that if they don't like how health and cooldowns are trading, they can back out, and then they've got the protection of a Sym turret there that, again, the opposing team doesn't really want to all in. Sym's going to then play at max beam range as her tanks are pushing in there to try to charge up a bit. Really, what you're getting out of this is some space, as the opponents, knowing that all-inning isn't really an option because there's potentially any number of turrets on the other side of that choke, and not wanting to stay close enough to feed Sym left-click charge, are going to back up out of that range. At that point, you have as much space as you're going to get, as you don't want to range far enough away from your own turrets that they can't be retreated to. So you drop a teleporter, and the opponents, having backed off a bit, can't all in and kill it before Sym GOATS gets to cycle their whole team through it. Optimally, the other end of this teleporter will put you on the point, and Sym will immediately put down her remaining two turrets in a place that they can't be killed without the opponents pushing past your Rhine and some sort of choke if map geometry allows. The opponent's GOATS will want to evict you from the point and push up. Whether they try to immediately all-in you and suffer from the damage and slow of the turrets, or whether they try to push in a little with Rhine Shield up, take that damage and slow onto the shield, and then let Diva and Zarya clear turrets and then push in, it's generally best for your Rhine to simply hard shield, as the other team has a Discord Orb to play with and you don't. While the other team is pursuing either one of these options, your Anna or Moira can keep your non-discorded shielding Reinhardt up, while your Symmetra takes a couple seconds to fully charge up her beam on either Rein or Diva, and then simply melt them. Do remember that your defense matrix is super relevant here for protecting your Reinhardt from Zen Orbs and Diva damage, while the opponent's defense matrix has no value against your Sym. You're using left clicks, not right clicks. Once the opposing Rein is low, your Rein can of course take a swing at him to help finish him off, as you're no longer worried about him dying at that point. He's going to be able to stabilize behind his own shield, even if he's discorded, because he's got that Anna or that Moira to top him back off, and he wasn't going to get bursted down when he can shield all of the damage left on the table except Briggs. The fight's really over at that point. You've won. So the reason Sym GOATS isn't run all that often is twofold. First, it's not all that good against most non-GOATS comps. Sym is in the comp, after all, for her high damage against tanks after ramp up, and non-GOATS comps have less tanks to beam down. Having dropped some form of sustain to get her, be that Briggs or Diva, the comp is going to be exhausted by non-GOATS comps more quickly. In practice, that means the comp only really comes out when you're on attack, because then you can scout the opposing comp before committing to your Sym GOATS. Second, the comp really does like to be able to take a spot that the opponent wants to push into in order to get full value. This means it's better when there's a point to play with, something that you can get on, hold, etc., as opposed to payloads, which move a bit, set up your turrets, payload moves a little bit, turrets are on a pretty long cooldown. That doesn't work out as well. And Sym GOATS really does need those turrets against GOATS comps to help ease Sym into the fight, as she herself is weakest and brings down the strength of your comp for the first second or so of the fight. As time goes on, she of course gets much stronger. Anyway, that's what I've got. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks guys. Temporal out.